a few people from other places in Sweden here today, so I figured I would do my presentation in Swedish. In English, that's the other. No, yeah. It's awesome to be here. I didn't realize how big this stage is. It's extremely frightening. I'm going to speak about Ticktail today and some of the things that we've been learning in this process of building this company, and some of the things that have shaped our company culture. But to give some of you who might not know what Ticktail is, I thought I would start by giving you some of the background and a brief description of the company. About three years ago, I was working at a company called IdentityWorks, which is this brand development design agency. I was working as an art director. And I started to feel that I wanted to do something else, something that would be longer term, something I could see myself building, not for the next couple of months, but for the next 10 or 20 years. I was working at a time with this friend of mine, a guy called Kai, and we started texting each other, pushing ideas back and forth. When thinking about startups and thinking about like companies, you like to think that the idea of a company, the seed that makes you want to build something, is like a eureka moment, an epiphany that just comes to you. I'm not sure if that's a grade, whether or not the company is good or bad, but with Ticktail it was quite the opposite. It was a hard, tenacious process of us going back and forth with the worst ideas. We were going to build a calendar that saved time for you, and at one point we were discussing to build this dating app, and I can't think of a team that would create a worse dating experience than the Ticktail team. But at the same time, this is roughly 3 years ago, this lady here in the bottom left corner is my mother, Eva. She was starting her own business. So she's been an artist my entire life, a ceramist. She's been creating these beautiful sculptures and pottery. And at the age of 63, she takes this really, really exciting leap in her career, this extremely exciting, big, bold step. And she becomes probably the entrepreneur that I adore and look up to the most. She decides to leave handmade production behind, and she goes out and she finds this factory, she finds this warehouse, and she starts building a brand around herself. She creates this company called Baimutti that basically creates traditional Chinese porcelain with old school sailor tattoos painted on it. Obvious market fit. So she's asking me questions, a lot of questions every day, like how do you build your brand, how do you set up your site, all of these things. And she highlights to me what I think is a bigger shift, a bigger trend in the market. It's this idea that it's never been less expensive or easier to create your own business. And what's happening because of this is this new generation of entrepreneurs, micropreneurs, millions of people that are quitting their day jobs, that are working weekends to make ends meet, but they're building their own companies and building their own brands. And for these companies, these micropreneurs, this new generation of entrepreneurs, their biggest channel is going to be online. And if you take one of them, take my mom. She's an amazing artist. She has a great story to tell, but at the same time, she's a complete novice when it comes to running a successful online business. At Ticktail, we wanted to solve that. We wanted to create sort of a commerce center, an intelligent hub that would take care of all of your online needs in one place. Kind of like a business in a box. So we started working on this idea, and we started working every weekend. We would meet up in my kitchen on Fridays, hack non-stop for 48 hours, and then go back to work on Mondays and do the full week. This would repeat every week for 6 months, and every month we would take half our salaries and put away in this joint savings account. This became Ticktail, what I think is the easiest way to create a beautiful online store, on desktop or mobile. But more importantly, we wanted to help these small businesses in what happens next. We wanted to support them along the way. How do they get their first traffic? How do they get their first sales? So we came up with what we think is a unique interface, the Ticktail feed. A custom, a tailored to-do list for each and every of our 70,000 stores on what to do and when. Like how to write terms and conditions or return policy, but also more advanced tasks like how to set up email campaigns, run ads on Facebook, or reconnect with past customers on desktop and on mobile. We launched Ticktail 2.5 years ago in May 2012, and today we're the home to more than 70,000 stores in 140 countries. These are entrepreneurs that are first-time online sellers, and together they put up more than 2 million unique products online. These are brands like the Transparent Speaker from People that shared this stage with me earlier today, and probably one of my favorite Ticktail stores, an amazing speaker. To local brands like Kika in New York that creates these handcrafted leather bags, but also global brands like Lufthansa that use Ticktail to fuse marketing and online sales in creating pop-up stores. In this specific case, they collaborated with galleries in Berlin, and they took their artwork and made it available online. Now, the twist was that if you bought any of these paintings, a ticket to Berlin to pick it up in the gallery was included in the price. Or most recently, the Big Mac shop. Now, don't miss this one. Who doesn't want to have a one-piece Big Mac thing? As I was choosing what to wear on stage today, it was a 50-50 split, and I ended up in a coin toss. End of last year, we brought all of these stores together to create a user destination, a consumer destination, where you can discover all of the brands that live on the Ticktail platform. We just launched this a few months ago, and if you have a moment, please download the app on your iPhone or your Android and give us some feedback on how we can improve. This is when we had the first sale on Ticktail in November 2011, and you see that black dot around Stockholm. That's the first sale on the platform. Since we launched, Ticktail has grown and spread out from Stockholm, out from Sweden, into Europe, and starting to find its way into the US and across the world. Now, I feel extremely proud over the progress that we've made since we left or graduated from my kitchen table just a few years ago, with the vision of creating the world's most used and loved e-commerce platform. But if you ask anyone that works at Ticktail today what our slogan is, what our motto is, they will say something quite different. And it's, we're just getting started. We've made tremendous progress, but it's still day one in terms of what we want to build with Ticktail and what we want to achieve in this company. And that's probably the most exciting part about being on this journey today. The remaining part of this presentation, I wanted to sort of summarize some of the things, the bigger trends that we've seen in our company, that have happened in our culture, and that we've learned voluntarily or involuntarily. As I was putting down bullets before this presentation, trying to define for myself, what is our company culture? What does it look like? I realized that there were 3 bigger categories that things fitted into. It was purpose, people, and process. And it's kind of like a pyramid. I think one leads to the next one. So what does that mean? Well, I think a company starts with a purpose. And this is very different from ideas. I think ideas are some of the most dangerous things that can happen to companies. And the difference here between an idea and a purpose is that an idea is to make it easy to create an online store. That's an idea. For Ticktail, it started with a purpose. It was to empower a new generation of entrepreneurs, to help them become successful. Now, that purpose can go in many different directions, and we don't know which one is right. One might be to make it easy to create an online store, but that's just one option. And that's why I think it's so important to define your purpose before you get stuck in your idea. A good purpose is also the best way to attract what's most important to your business, the best people. Today, there's a lot of jobs that pays a lot of money. And for a small company, for a small business, a new business, your most important currency will be the purpose, the reason why people should be part of this journey and not some other one. And then finally, process or processes. Now, a lot of people will think or say that this is something that belongs to the big companies, the corporations, and in fact, one of the reasons you want to be in a startup is to get away from all of these processes and pre-configured ways of doing things. I think it's quite the opposite. I think the way you can maintain a flat hierarchy, the way you can provide full autonomy to the people in a company is to have processes and to work a lot on these things and make sure that these are processes that empower people. So let's take a closer look at these 3 bullets. The first one being purpose. As you're starting a new project, be it within an organization you're in or a new business, I think it's important to start by thinking extremely big. To create a purpose that is exciting to people, that people can get passionate about and want to get behind. Limitless thinking here. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, I think one of the most important traits is to be able to balance the skill of thinking big and limitless, but then also starting small. So what's an example of that? Well, again, I think for Ticktail, the mission of our business is to empower a new generation of entrepreneurs to become successful online. And that may mean a lot of things. That may mean that we will, in 5 years from now, we will have banks. We will provide microloans to small businesses. We will provide insurance to business owners. We will have retail stores all around the world. But we can't start there. So we have to start with the most simple, smallest piece of that equation. For us, that was to help people create an easy online store. As you figure out your purpose and your first step towards it, I think it's important for projects and for people to tell stories. And this sounds so simple, but at the same time, it's one of the things where I see most people fail. Where people are so focused on telling you about what they have been doing, not about how people will be using it. At Ticktail, we almost never talk about the features of our platform or about what Ticktail exactly is. What we do, however, always talk about with new people we want to hire, with investors, with press, internally, is the stories of our entrepreneurs, of the stores that are using our platform. When we see our metrics grow, we don't think about it as Ticktail growing. We think about it as 70,000 entrepreneurs growing on top of the Ticktail platform. And to kind of reconfigure your way of how you look and talk about the project you're working on, from talking about the features you're building to talking about the impact they will have on its users, is such an important change of mindset, both internally and externally. The second part then, after purpose, is obviously people. I started this company with these 3 idiots. And would I start a new company today, I would start it with the same team, for sure, 100%. People always say that you shouldn't start businesses with friends, and I couldn't disagree more. I've had the most exciting and fun 3 years of my life, and to not have been around with friends to share those extremely challenging, fun, passionate moments would have seemed like such a waste. And as we've scaled our company from 4 people to more than 40 people, that's been our principal focus. We try to always hire entrepreneurs. So when we look for when we look for talent to our company, we don't just look for a designer, a marketer, a data scientist. We try to look for someone that is 50% that, whatever they need to be good at, but 50% an inspiring, strong entrepreneur. Because the moment you stop prioritizing finding entrepreneurs for your organization, for your team, is the time when you start limiting innovation to yourself, to your founding team. I don't believe for a second that I'm the smartest person alive. I don't even think I'm the smartest person on this stage. Well, we want to create an organization where the more people that come into Ticktail, the more innovative our company becomes. A place where ideas can come from all parts of the organization. And that's why we only hire entrepreneurs. And the test when we hire someone is, Would this be a person that we would consider starting our own business with, a new business with? But that's also why it's so important for us to get processes in place, to enable an organization to be able to attract these people to an organization that's growing from 4 people to 40 people to at some point be the home of 400 people. We want to create processes that enable autonomy at Ticktail. And I think the 3 most important steps towards succeeding in that is to build an organization of small teams, but still teams. So in Ticktail, a team, people that are working on any specific task, are never less than 3 people. If you have less than 3 people to work on something, maybe you shouldn't focus on it. Maybe it's not the right priority. But there are never more than 5 people working on any given project. That's the number we came up with because it felt like the natural size of a group to be able to stay flat in terms of hierarchy, to be able to self-organize around a table and have a discussion where the best idea wins. We plan our teams by objectives, not ideas. I don't think that the right way of planning a company is to say, this group is going to build this. Instead, the way we're approaching it is to say, this group are focused on this objective. They're going to achieve this. Again, it's a different way of looking at things. So an example would be, in our company, we have a team called Store Marketing. Their core purpose is to help our stores sell more. But that's the way we plan their objective. Instead of saying, these are 5 things you should build that I think would help our store sell more, we enable the people that are closer to the problem to come up with the right solution. But to succeed in this, it requires something back from the organization. It requires full transparency. And I don't mean just in terms of like how you're thinking about things. We need to be transparent about what our financials look like, what our data look like, how is our growth going, how are we performing, what are other people in the organization working on. So at any given time, any person in Ticktail can go into our internal webpage and see exactly what I'm working on right now, what my goals are, and how I'm performing. And this goes for all the people in the organization. We try to think about our company in terms of both long-term and short-term. So we try to never plan exactly what to do more than a month away, but we try to have a pretty strong sense of where we are a year from now. And this has been a really helpful framework for us to plan our work, because it forces us to be extremely iterative, to work in quick and short releases. But it stays us on track to move towards a bigger goal that's a year away. It's kind of like our compass. This enforces a way of looking at work that is done is better than perfect. It's more important to constantly release new things, to get new user feedback and learn from people, than to launch once every 6 months and then have something that you consider to be perfect. This also decreases your exposure to risk. Because if that thing you're working on turns out to be a failure, and trust me, sometimes it is, then you've only missed a month working on that project, working in that sprint. There's this beautiful quote from Thomas Edison around inventing the light bulb, which is, I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. We try to structure our work so that these failures happen sooner rather than later. The last part, in terms of processes, is about always thinking about how you can improve. I think we sometimes get lost in that it feels so urgent. We have to move so fast and work on so many new projects that we forget to be introspective and think about how can we improve as colleagues, as team members, as coaches. At Ticktail, we created one rule that teams can never move away from. It's at the end of each month, you do a retrospective. You sit down with your team members, and you list all of the things that you did particularly well, and you list all of the things that you could have done better. And from those clusters, you pick one thing that's going to be an actionable improvement for you and the rest of the team in the next month. You only pick one thing. There's always a lot of ideas on the table, but you pick one thing that you're going to improve upon every month. Every week, every person in Ticktail have a direct one-on-one conversation with their manager. To build a culture around continuous improvement, I think, has been key to us. I listed the process for retrospects, the way we approach them here. I'm not going to go through it right now, but my presentation is on my Twitter if you want to download it. Kind of summary slide. I've also reached the end of my presentation, I think. If I think about the things that have most helped shape our organization and our culture, it's purpose, finding a purpose that excites people, that makes people passionate, that makes people feel that this is a journey they want to be on. And tell a story about that purpose, what it means for people, how it changes or impacts the world around us. I think people is the most important part to any organization or any project. I'd like to think that you should find people that have an entrepreneurial aspect to them and that you don't mind spending time with, because we spend a lot of time at work. And then process. I think that processes are actually an enabler of innovation, of autonomy. And they're not something that belongs just to the big companies or big corporations. They're enablers for small groups and startups. And processes do their work when they help you get out of the way and enable the people on your team to move without checking in. I think that these are things that you in different ways can adapt and bring into your organization. And I hope that this has been helpful for you in some way. Yeah, thanks.
Tack så mycket, Carl. Jag tänker att vi switchar över till svenska nu, om inte du har glömt bort hur man pratar.
Jag kommer ihåg.
Bra. Du,
yes.
Inför att jag skulle göra research inför din dragning så lyssnade jag på Startup-podden, Micke Zachrissons intervju med dig, som var helt fantastisk. Jag måste bara göra reklam för den, ni måste lyssna på den. Din dragning nu var ju också fantastisk, men där hade ni en och en halv timme tror jag, eller någonting, där du pratar mer ingående om de här sakerna. Och någonting som jag tyckte var otroligt intressant att höra, det är ju hur det är inte alla här som jobbar i startups och som har möjligheten att liksom fatta de här besluten kring hur man ska jobba, utan det är satta strukturer och sådär. Men någonting som man kanske kan relatera till, det är hur ni som startup har varit tvungna att vara väldigt kreativa med marknadsföring. Ni har haft en väldigt liten marknadsföringsbudget och hur ni har jobbat med det. Kan inte du berätta bara lite mer om det? Alltså lite grilla-aktiviteter som ni har haft och sådana saker.
Jo, absolut. Jag tror Ticktail från början när vi kom ut så var vi ett väldigt litet svenskt startup. Men det fanns väldigt många spännande startups i Sverige. Stora som små, allt ifrån Spotify till Skype en gång i tiden, King, Klarna. Så när vi började med att lansera Ticktail så tänkte vi väldigt mycket på hur berättar vi den här historien? Vad är historien om Ticktail? Och den första approachen vi tog var att göra oss en del av ett annat fenomen, och det var svenska startup-fenomenet. Så vi gick till alla stora journalister i England, runt om i Europa, i Sverige. Och vi sa, det finns ett svenskt startup-fenomen som inte blir uppmärksammat tillräckligt ofta. Titta på alla de här bolagen. Och så pratade vi om alla de här bolagen som redan var etablerade, som redan hade nyhetsvärde. Men vi berättade den historien åt dem och lyckades snika oss in på den historien och bli en del av det. Och det var väl så vi egentligen fick liksom vår första traction, vår tidiga publicitet. Sen dess har vi fortsatt försöka hitta sätt att berätta historier som vi är kopplade till eller relaterade till på olika sätt. Och det är allt ifrån programmeringstävlingar som jag tror vi pratade om i Startup-podden till
Code in the Dark, som ni hade för bara några dagar sedan, väl? Eller förra veckan?
Ja, precis, i fredags. Och vi öppnade upp en pop-up-butik i New York där vi hade en butik öppen i 6 veckor. Som skulle vara en kampanj men som blev lönsam, så det kanske blir fler sådana. Så vi försöker hitta sätt att bara berätta vår historia på nya sätt i nya medier.
Det är intressant att du nämner Code in the Dark som en marknadsföringsaktivitet. För jag tänker mest som rekryterings, liksom employer branding aktivitet. Men ni får mycket traction, mycket liksom PR på det också.
Ja, men precis. Och sen så vet inte jag om vi försöker urskilja på det så mycket. Vi försöker hitta sätt att engagera folk som på olika sätt är relevanta för oss på Ticktail. Det är folk vi vill anställa. Vi försöker rekrytera hela tiden, duktig talang. till att liksom få press på olika saker eller växa antalet butiker.
Men någonting som jag också tyckte var intressant av det du nämnde var hur många av era existerande kunder som faktiskt rekommenderar er, eller skulle rekommendera er, säger att de skulle rekommendera er. Jag tror det var så många som 80%.
Ja,
och att det är också en otroligt viktig kanal för er.
Ja, word of mouth har verkligen varit en extremt viktig driver för Ticktail. Och det är spännande, vi är lite så här hybrid mellan en business-to-business-produkt och en business-to-consumer-produkt. Och vi har alltid sett det som att vi bygger ett interface för butiksägare, men vi hanterar dem som vi pratar med dem som människor. Och det tror jag i sig har varit en väldigt tydlig differentiering för oss mellan andra business-to-business-verktyg som pratar med dig som att du vore en IT-avdelning.
Precis. Jag tyckte också det var väldigt spännande när ni pratade om just det här med business to business. Är det en större plan inför framtiden? Att du beskrev det som att ni ser det som att ni hjälper andra entreprenörer. Ni bygger affärer på det viset. Liksom. Så ni är inte bara en plattform som gör det möjligare och enklare att starta en e-handel, utan ni är mycket större än så. Det är visionen.
Ja, absolut. Och jag håller verkligen fast vid det jag sa under presentationen, att just nu så gör vi webbshoppar och hjälper folk att sälja online. Men jag ser på inga sätt det som vårt slutmål. Utan jag ser gärna att Ticktail om 5 år är en plats som kan samla alla de här små företagen och ge dem bättre priser på lån, bättre försäkring, allt möjligt.
Fantastiskt. Tack så jättemycket.